Good morning, all. Hope you're enjoying the amazing summer that we're having at the moment. My name is Will Browsdon, and I'm Managing Director of Hivestack across EMEA. And we're here today to discuss the kind of recent development of programmatic digital out of home, and really the coming together of two schools of thought across the offline and the online worlds. Programmatic digital out of home has been a hot topic for almost, I'd say, 2 years now in the UK and across Europe. And it's really no secret that the recent pandemic has caused huge disruption to the out-of-home markets globally. But as a result, we've seen a rapid progression of programmatic as an approach to digital out-of-home delivery, especially as we see the desire for more flexibility and accountability grows from advertisers. So with this in mind, we've invited some incredible talent across out-of-home, online and content delivery to discuss these recent developments and really how it is shifting the out-of-home landscape and also what value it's delivering for brands. So with that, I would like to introduce to you Danielle Austin, who is Managing Director at Evolve Out of Home, a fantastic independent specialist out-of-home agency. Danielle comes with a wealth of experience in out-of-home, both locally and internationally across many markets, and has been a sort of an early adopter of programmatic out-of-home technology. There's also Joel Livesey, and lead Senior Director of Partnerships covering EMEA at the Trade Desk. And I hope Joel doesn't mind me mentioning, but he's really one of the pioneers of programmatic digital out of home at the Trade Desk and has led the development really from the ground up. So very excited to hear his thoughts today as well. And last but not least, Liam Rushforth, co-founder and CEO of Flux Outdoor. And Flux specializes in intelligent content delivery for out of home, covering everything from media optimization right through to dynamic content delivery. So it's really great to have Liam here, as content is really one of the things that unites all channels. So interesting to hear his thoughts looking from the outside in. So welcome all, how are you?
Really good, thank you. Thank you very much for having us.
Brilliant. Yes, and don't worry, I'm not going to ask you too many difficult questions today, like who's going to win tonight in the England versus Germany match? What's the score going to be? Are we going to go to penalties? So nothing too tricky like that today, basically. But on that note, should we kick off? We'll leave that one for another time, I think. But the first question I'd really like to ask you guys is a simple one, but hopefully an important question as well. And it's really, what attracted you to out of home in the first instance? And as early adopters of programmatic digital out of home, what do you see as the opportunity in your respective businesses? So if I aim that at Danielle to start with.
Yeah, sure. For me, it's the visual of the medium, and working on a international media plan, having out of home in multiple cities across the world, being able to speak to audiences in different languages and at different times, for me is really able to connect to audiences. So I just think that it's the programmatic coming into the marketplace at this point in time where audiences' movements are changing daily is now more compatible than ever, really, for the medium to adopt.
Cool. And same to you, Joel, really, like what's, from your space, obviously coming from online, is it, something that attracted you to out of home from that space, and where do you see that kind of opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, it was the one channel that programmatic hadn't touched at all. I've worked in sort of ad tech for 15 years, and out of home had never been in anyone's thoughts, but probably 3 or 4 years ago, it started to become an opportunity. And ultimately, I think all media can be transacted programmatically, whether now or in the future. And out of home kind of reached that tipping point, as you said, a couple of years ago. And it's a really, really exciting channel for us to, get involved in, to learn more about, and to understand how it interacts with all the other channels, and how that different advertisers take different approaches is a really exciting opportunity for us as a business from the technical side, and obviously from the commercial side. Out of home is the oldest advertising medium. You can probably go back to ads on walls in Pompeii for services that we probably shouldn't talk about. And it's a massive medium all over the world, and the one channel that exists absolutely everywhere. So it's really exciting for everyone to get involved with.
Cool. And Danielle, back to you. Was there a particular moment, that you were, out of home is the channel for me? This is something that this space really excites me.
Yeah, it was, if you think about a a corridor of a journey and how many different touch points there are along your daily commute or your commute in and out of a city or a country, that there's multiple touch points along that journey where out of home reaches individuals. And that for me was that optimize the medium, that those touch points happen at many different times and many different moments in a consumer's daily life and actually life cycle. And going back to Joel's point about the early medium and how it started, is that it's happened for hundreds and hundreds of years, but without us actually knowing that we're being spoken to. And it's the approach of the medium and now how we can make that content relevant is, I think that with the future is really upon us to start adopting.
Cool. And Liam, same to you really. You had quite a, I guess, an unusual start that's sort of moving into the out of home space. Like, what was it that really drew you to out of home, and obviously especially now the kind of programmatic space as well?
Yeah, so I guess we actually kicked off a fair while ago now, 2015, and it was a little bit more like it was scratching our own itch at the time because, you know, we'd come from engineering degrees, me and my co-founder, and we'd actually wanted to launch on out of home with what now looking back was quite a sophisticated media plan. You know, we wanted data-driven media, we wanted data-driven creative. I ended up on the phone to someone trying to flog me a digital board, but in a 4-week slot. And it just, that at the time, it felt like the bigger opportunity was actually, realizing all this data that was about and all the context that we could provide to digital screens, because the chasm between digital and out of home was huge. And people were talking about programmatic back then, programmatic out of home. But yeah, like you say, it's only been the past couple of years where it's actually really moved forwards in terms of technology and mindset, actually. Advertisers are really demanding it more now as well.
That's really interesting. It kind of brings me on to the I guess, my first, real topic of conversation, really. And this has been quite an interesting one. It's really about change. And I think change is always sort of so difficult to manage. And we're often having to persuade or change schools of thought, educate ourselves or agencies or clients about something that's new or an unproven route to market. And it's really kind of like, is that the right option for clients' budgets? And especially now when obviously budgets are so sensitive, it becomes even more challenging. So, I mean, Danielle, certainly from, I have some out of home experience in the past, so I understand kind of, and I imagine the same for you, that change is especially difficult in out of home, especially with the legacy that it has. And we already touched upon that. I mean, I remember when digital screens first appeared as well, Liam, and it's really, it took us a long time to adjust to actually, I guess, the inclusion of digital out of home in kind of briefs for out of home. So, and also realize the benefits and value it added for clients. So from an outdoor specialist perspective, and having worked so closely with clients on a day-to-day basis for many years, what are the key challenges you think we face for adoption for a programmatic approach to out of home, and how do you plan to tackle those challenges? And that's to you, Danielle.
I think if we go back to the early days when digital become a thing, we always looked at creative and how people were using creatives, and there was nothing more frustrating than just being given a static PDF to run on this digital medium. And there were days when I used to kind of pull my hair out and think, you're not optimizing the medium, you're just replicating what you're doing on a static panel. And we had to go through a process of education, really, on how to educate the brands and the creative agencies to use this new medium and think about it alongside their other media buys and how they could all come together. I think it's exactly the same where we are at this crossroad now with programmatic, is brands are now focused on their data and how they can use that data to drive now their out of home and that accountability piece. And you look at, people are looking back at their social media feeds and how many likes they've got, and we can adopt that in out of home. And I just think is an education piece where we need to start educating our clients and our agencies about how they can bring their whole media plan together, and out of home can sit alongside their other, whether it's search, social, online, and it can be an holistic approach rather than out of home having to sit on the side. So I think it's bringing that all together and allowing that strategic plan to talk across all media formats and types, rather than having single approaches for different mediums. And that's something that we are doing at Evolve by going out and doing upfronts with our clients and talking about the benefits of programmatic and how it's an additional capability stack to the already out of home stack that we have, and it's not needed to be seen as a on the side offering. It all feeds into the strategic plan of out of home. So that's what we're doing from a specialist perspective.
I think that's really interesting as well, isn't it? Because I think that's maybe the challenge we see from the out of home space is really, you know, this isn't a threat to what's currently happening. It's complementing what is already in existence, and it's adding new capabilities. And I think that's the bit that I think excites me from this space, is the progression. We're always looking for progression, and how do we add to what we're currently doing? How do we develop it? So it's really interesting to see multi-layers of kind of strategic work happening in out of home. And it could be anything from just your traditional big brand right through some sort of tactical or you know, more kind of specific targeting that you want to do through what programmatic allows you to do. So it's really interesting.
Just to echo that point as well completely, Danielle, really especially from what we've seen as well, the content piece has been we've seen a lot more agencies especially kind of merging the digital side and the out of home side rather than keeping them in silos, and it's been really effective when that happens. So actually you can almost like reproduce digital assets onto out of home, save budget on the production. There's now the technology and the tools in place to make it a lot easier to expand a digital campaign into the real world. So yeah, just completely agree.
Cool. And Joel, just from your perspective, obviously you're coming at this from the online world, and obviously out of home has been and will continue to be one-to-many marketing channel, and programmatic digital out of home sort of operates under sort of different principles to out of home. I mean, just how will you basically manage, I guess, the expectations from clients who are basically accustomed to programmatic, or basically what programmatic online delivers for them? Is there a kind of way in which you'll sort of educate and your clients on the benefits of programmatic in out of home, basically to ensure the two channels can work effectively together? Because you want to take the best of both worlds and kind of bring them together, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best of both worlds is the key point. I think there's often a risk with programmatic or digital people that we can go in with a bit of an arrogance that everything digital is amazing because we've got all this data and this ability to target. But that doesn't mean that the way out of home or before it connected TV worked was bad. You know, they got huge budgets and continue to get huge budgets, but programmatic levers and triggers can improve things. You know, Danielle's mentioned the touch points on this journey down the corridor, and, you know, the ability to optimize and improve your campaign is key, but you don't want to take away from the one-to-many medium as well. You know, it has a few different sort of use cases in certain places in that journey. It's not to say that absolutely everything that out of home did before needs to be torn up and thrown away. We put a lot of work not just into educating out of home people about programmatic, but we have to educate programmatic people about out of home as well, so that we don't take some sort of arrogant approach into the medium. And, you know, all of the efficiencies that can be made through programmatic are definitely applicable to out of home. You know, we're able to use external triggers to optimize creatives, to the point made earlier, or to set up campaigns in a way that means that your ad kind of strikes when it's absolutely relevant. So we ran a campaign for the taxi service Free Now that reacted to delays on the Underground and National Rail, so that ads for taxis appeared when trains were delayed. And that's the sort of thing that a 4-week booking wouldn't have got you beforehand. You know, it would probably be pretty brutal on a paper and paste approach for out of home ads if you had to react to train delays that quickly. But it's something we can do to make the most of both media perfectly. But yeah, the education definitely has to go both ways. And, you know, it's absolutely key that clients also understand that we haven't finished this journey into programmatic out of home yet. Programmatic brings that ability to test and learn. And that testing and learning will vary not just advertiser to advertiser, but even campaign to campaign, and arguably the same campaign, those learnings will change as you run it over time and as the out-of-home market evolves. So, you know, the beauty of programmatic is its efficiency and its speed of reaction, But we're not done with learning what those efficiencies are and how we react and what we react to yet. And it's really just the beginning of that, and it's really exciting, I think, for everyone.
I totally agree with that. And I guess, Liam, this is your stomping ground now, isn't it? This is all about kind of context in out of home. And obviously we've been doing context in out of home for years and years, but now the ability to add kind of media optimization at the front part of the campaign is really interesting. So new and exciting triggers. We're always so used to kind of weather and temperature and out of home, which are obviously highly relevant. That's where they came from. But now looking at all these fantastic new triggers that add further content, like, you look seat sale availability, live traffic, social sentiment. I mean, it is, data and creativity is such an important part of out of home, and it's a lot of the reason why I love the channel. I mean, is this something as well? Do you your business has crossed over between online and the offline worlds? What do you see as the differences and similarities, and where's the opportunity lie for programmatic digital out of home, and what you guys add to it?
Well, yeah, completely agree. Just to kick off with, Joel and Will, huge opportunities that aren't quite being used yet, and I think out of home is nuanced enough that it's put quite a few people off trying to do DCO, and it feels like a bit of a faff, or it did do in the past. And I think also there was this misconception in the past that to do content optimization or something special on out of home, meant another $100,000 production, and it was going to be on one piece, one site, and it was going to be PRable, and it had to be this huge thing. Whereas a lot of what we're doing is just saying, start small, start a little bit, and start to use that first party data, and make it scalable. It doesn't have to be a big stunt. Just make it effective, make it scalable, and it's a lot easier. It's something of a no-brainer at the moment, I think. But yeah, really exciting to see all the different requests that we're getting for like you said, social sentiment is a fun one, and traffic mobility, actually adding copy even when the traffic's slow. It just, like, these little optimizations can go a long way. And just to echo Joel's point slightly, using the first party data can actually bring about this level of accountability for the testing and learning. And brands are seemingly quite keen to do this at the moment. So yeah, it's a really exciting time. But yeah, I guess, sorry, I've gone off your question a little bit, haven't I? Go for it again.
No, that was it. It's really, I was asking about, the importance of data and creativity. It's just interesting to see, obviously you've crossed over between those two worlds, between online and offline. Where's where is the opportunity? But that's what you just described there. It's the ability to, actually optimize media, but also have a really relevant message in a contextually relevant location as well. So yeah, you've answered that question perfectly. And Danielle, I don't know if it's something that you've seen in the kind of specialist out of home work. Are you seeing an increased demand for dynamic creative optimization, or even at the front side of things, being able to trigger or react to different moments that matter for various different brands?
Yeah, no, completely. I think, we buy across a global market. So being able to have content that's delivered in different languages, and to be able to switch that between, if we're advertising in Spain, to be talking in Spanish, and then have the ad then playing in English, because they know that there's a time when there's going to be lots of tourists around, and there's information that is feeding into what the nationality of those tourists are, is really powerful. And that's something that since the the easing of restrictions, we've started seeing brands coming forward and looking to definitely optimize their creative play out. So how can they speak to the audiences at the right time? If you've got a sports brand, is it that they're going to target with their running wear in the morning, and then in the afternoon they're going to look more towards their yoga, Pilates type wear? And it's really interesting because brands are now asking the questions. It's, we're not having to lead. So it's really nice to be able to work then with creative agencies and look at actually what their creative assets are, to be able to look at the type of formats we're buying, and then where you've got your traditional out of home and you've got your digital out of home, and how you then make your storyboard work, and how you've got them always on moments, and always on and always off. So it's definitely something that we're seeing come through, and it's really, really refreshing that clients and creative agencies are now leading that conversation. And they're producing assets that are for traditional and digital, and then using assets from other media types. So no, it's definitely there.
I really like the international part of that as well, because I always think about triggers and it has to trigger in your kind of local market, but being able to have the ability to trigger across multiple markets but also reacting to what's happening locally. The interesting one, I remember watching the football last night, is you've got to think about when those goals were going back and forth between the two teams, because obviously the matches last night were incredible.
Yeah.
But actually how people's emotions change based on where they probably were in bars or in home, and be able to actually activate based on that. So one moment team's up and you could change copy based on that and actually react to a positive emotion versus a negative emotion in a different market, and be able to coordinate those effectively and actually deliver it in out of home seems like a really interesting, exciting thing, especially when global brands want to activate globally, but with a real local feel to it. So yeah, I love that. I think it's really exciting. I mean, just moving on to the kind of next topic I know we've touched a little bit about this, is really education, because what we're effectively trying to do now, and it's quite interesting when, we're looking to grow at kind of Hivestack, is almost in a way we're trying to create a new breed of planner. And I've kind of mentioned this before, we have to find someone who basically can specialize in out of home and also the online space, and you're kind of joining together those two worlds, and we need to find a way of educating both sides of the fence to create this kind of new breed of planner. I mean, Danielle, just from your point of view, I mean, how do you think we should best come together as an industry really to ensure programmatic out of home is really a positive experience? That we don't want to sort of bring in this sort of new amalgamation of two pieces of kind of two worlds, and then actually for clients to have a negative experience, and really we want to add value to clients. So is there a way in which you think we can best come together to do that?
I'll be really honest. So the way in which I started was I got myself a mentor, and I mentor her and she mentors me, and she's actually a member of she's an employee of the trade desk. And that was how I took my own education, for me to be able to learn. I'd come from a very traditional medium, and the medium was changing very, very quickly. And I needed someone that was at the forefront, that worked in that world already. And, from spending time with her and us teaching each other and educating each other, I've got a much greater understanding now of how the two can come together and work together, that they're not butting heads. That there is an approach that we can take directly. And I think it is by the traditional way of reading. We've got so much at our fingertips now. There's so many wonderful articles and thought pieces that are published online, that's the first approach. And then the second approach has got to be using partners in the marketplace, such as Hivestack, to be able to come in and talk to the wider team and do some, trial and error, do some campaigns and talk to clients and find out how they've approached different mediums when they was at the beginning of their journeys into the world that we're now in. So for me, I'd say, find some friends, get yourself a mentor if you're not sure on, you need to learn more. There's lots of people out there, and there's lots of different information and articles and thought pieces that you can read, and then start asking questions and push the medium. And there's lots of industry bodies that need to probably be provoked to be able to provide some more research and some more learning points, because there's lots already out in the marketplace about traditional buying and planning, but there's not so much when we're looking at programmatic. So I think we, as a collective, we need to push some of the bodies out there to be able to put this on the agenda.
And if I can just add one thing, which is I think the element that none of us have talked about so far is also the media owners and them embracing it. We're all focused on advertisers and buyers because ultimately that's who we kind of talk to most and who drives the revenue. But the media owners also, are really have sort of turned a corner and are really, really keen to learn about programmatic. I think most channels that have embraced programmatic have had, made some mistakes and had some problems. Out of home is maybe unique in the relatively small number of media owners who can kind of cover most of that channel, and they're starting to understand that programmatic is a good thing for them. Just for this for an advertiser, it means you can buy the right impressions for you for the right price. But actually, for the media owner, yes, you don't get the sort of certainty of a 4-week booking, but you can sell every one of those impacts, hopefully for a higher price, for a better price, it means that more advertisers can start getting involved, because you don't have to have the money needed for a huge booking. You can buy a smaller group of impacts, a smaller number of placements, and for a media owner, that should hopefully only drive up their revenue, drive up the number of advertisers who are able to work with them. And in the fairly near term, I think it will be a win for absolutely everybody.
Agreed. And I think there's something really interesting. Daniel, I love your mentor approach as well. I think it is a little bit of kind of slow and steady wins the race with this one. I think, just that's what out of home has always been quite good at, is we take our time and make sure that the developments happen and they happen at the right kind of pace. And I think we should take our time. We should do a lot of reading. There are certain things that we're going to get wrong along the way, but the idea has always been, as I mentioned before, that we progress as a channel and we add to it. So yeah, I think I totally agree with that. And it's important that we have to bridge those gaps, and you have to find people that are interested in figuring out the kind of ways in which those two channels can complement each other as well.
I think just to add, one of the things that we need to move away from is having the digital person that works in a company and it only sits with them. And that's not how, this needs to be across a team, and everyone needs to be educated in the approach. And I think that's looking back at kind of in a past life, is that you always had your creative person, you always had your digital person, you'd always have the strategic buyer. And actually now, people don't just want to be known for doing one thing. When you look at the millennials coming into the companies, they want to learn a bit about everything and to have a full approach. And I think that's, as company leaders, we need to take that approach that our staff are able to cover not just one strand. And that's what we're doing, from an Evolve perspective, that's what we're doing. It's not one person that will be in charge of programmatic. It's a company-wide approach.
Agree. And just Liam, moving on to you, from a kind of a data and optimization perspective, what challenges do you think we face to doing effective DCO and media optimization at scale with programmatic? And where do you feel the sort of gaps in understanding lie at the moment?
Well, I suppose there was, until fairly recently, you had to make a choice between, especially like, do you want to focus on the media or do you want to focus on the creative? And it's now finally that we can blend the two together, which is super exciting. But I guess slightly touching on the educational point, there's lots that you can do on digital that you can now also do on out of home, but it just no one quite realizes yet. So creative A/B testing, or using performance from on is doing well, use that in the out of home in that area. So yeah, there's loads that can be done now that couldn't be done before. So it's a really interesting one.
Well, just on that point, it kind of brings me to my last topic, which is always nice to think about, which is the future. And obviously you were saying there that, people don't even know right now what is even possible. Just thinking ahead 5 years, just a collective question here, where do you think we will be in this space with programmatic digital out of home? Danielle, do you have a kind of a opinion on where that might be?
I don't think we'll be approaching it as an either or. You either go down a traditional route or you go down a programmatic route. I think the two will have come together, and I think that we will be planning and looking at first party data and how we use that, and creative very much sitting at the heart of how we talk to the relevant audiences in the right place at the right time, and brands being aware of how quickly they can scale up globally, scale down, pause, press go again, and that we can really react to our audiences as opposed to buying in set bursts. And I think I hope that's where we are. Great.
Joel, same question. Oh yeah,
just one point to add to that, just as well as being able to like start and stop. A lot of what we were doing in the past year especially was like shifting impressions to regions that weren't under as strict on rules and things like this. So it's actually like the whole media plan is flexible. It's
Right, and to you, Joel, what do you think? Next 5 years, where will we be?
Yeah, I think to echo Danielle's point, hopefully we won't be using the word programmatic in front of out of home. It will just be out of home. It will just be part of what you're doing for an omni-channel campaign. And yeah, I think absolutely that nimbleness that programmatic offers, you know, for most channels, our major advertisers have ongoing activity and then bursts on top of it as needed. And out of home will just be part of that. The creatives will link up between channels, the audiences, the targeting, the post-impression activity. You know, we've already run campaigns for, I think it was a PlayStation game, where we served ads to users who we knew were in a gaming audience. But then after the ad was served, we could track and measure the success of that campaign because their mobile data was able to be shared. And all of that, you know, that right now is fairly innovative and quite sort of, you know, non-standard at least. And that will just become normal. I think it will just become normal that out of home is one of the stepping stones of your activity. Whether it comes first, in the middle, last, will be tailored and understood by advertisers, that it's just a necessary part of what you're doing.
And it's like that, almost like the accountability part is an exciting new territory for me, especially if in and out of home, is that all of a sudden now we become accountable in that chain. And there's always that worry in kind of the early days of, I mean, it's all of a sudden now, you know, we were first to be thrown off kind of plans, you know, when there was, I guess, econometrics results. But now there's the kind of, you know, the way that we're planning, the way that we're able to buy, we're able to look at kind of variations in data that are provided by out of home and have accountability for it. So I think there's some really interesting steps that we're taking now that I think will, I guess, as you said, out of home will be an invaluable part of an omni-channel media plan, which is quite exciting. But
yeah, absolutely. I think the measurement is going to be key to kind of justify and grow its place in the plan.
And Liam, over to you.
To add as well, there's you know, next 5 years, we're seeing it already a little bit now, but like the online privacy world is really kicking off, you know, the death of the cookie, etc. And it's actually, I mean, we've noticed it ourselves, like it's given a real boost to the power of context and using environmental data to manipulate the content. So I think we're actually in line for a bit of a resurgence for out of home, just as the digital world realizes, you know, it's not cool to follow people online, like it's not cool to follow people out of home. You know, using context as a better indicator for actually shining a light on what's going on.
Cool. And that is it for me, guys. It's been wonderful talking to you. It's so interesting to see the different perspectives from, as I said, from the out of home world to the online world, and obviously talking about content delivery, the kind of thing that binds the two channels together. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Will.
Thanks for having us.